we're very lucky with our speaker tonight, and I'm going to need Ian to introduce Reverend Martin Seeley to you in a minute. Nights like tonight bring into sharp focus the importance to a person like Andrew Phillips, to a society like ours. He started the society following a campaign to rescue the Corn Exchange. The society has spent the last 2 years working quite hard with regard to a project to create a care bone on the western section of the Vannis site fronting Gregory Street. That application seems to get mired in endless discussions between the developer and the local authority. And there were lots of fairly technical reports obtained about the project from Essex Place Services, who wrote a long report about the project, and also Historic England, who made their comments known. And it all resulted in a 41-page report from Babergh District Council planners to the Planning Committee recommending refusal of the development. We as a society, acting on your behalf, have been in favour of the development as it created a use for the site which everybody accepted was a use which was needed and required in Sudbury. The problem seemed to arise that there was a thought that the proposal was too much of an imposition on conservation. None of the reports that were written made any mention of the fact that the building which was most impacted by the development proposed was our delightful fire station. We felt that showed a weakness in the argument if they couldn't even bring to the fore the fact that that building was going to be enhanced by what's going on it, rather than affected. But so we knew we were in for a hard time with regard to the application, because everything that had been written by the planners had been negative about it. The proposal was for a 3-storey building, and the reason for 3 stories was partly to reflect what had gone on with weavers' houses in Sudbury, but it was also that to make it work financially for the developers, the scale of the building has to have access to nursing stations, etc., within certain distances of all the rooms. So you couldn't make it a bigger building on 2 stories and make it work. They're national developers, care holes, and they understand what's required. So John Purser and myself went along to the Planning Committee, and how do you explain what happened? There was obviously fairly light regard for what the planning officers had submitted to the committee. How on earth you could expect councillors serving on a committee to read 41 pages of reports almost beggars belief, because they're not full-time workers and they wanted something which showed a respect for what was going on. We believe that Sudbury, to remain viable, needs to have investment going forward. The total cost of that investment to the company concerned will be some £20 million. Sudbury can't not think about the acceptance of that. the building that's going up may not be to everybody's taste, but it is a reflection of the weavers' houses that are scattered around the town. And there seemed to be a slight contradiction that in the last 6 years, I think, I can only think of one new development in a conservation area that has not been 3-storey. So why is it that a building opposite the fire station, fronted the main A road through the town, should be considered inappropriate? The answer was that when it got to discussion by the planning committee itself, one of the councillors stood up and proposed that they should vote against the planning officers and approve the development. And that is what actually happened, and the vote was 5-2 in favour of the care home. So on the Vanners site, once planning conditions have been agreed, you will see the progress and development of a care home on that site. We feel certain that that is good for the town of Sudbury, and it would have been strange if the council had turned down another large development in the town. You will all remember that Churchill Housing proposed a similar type of development, but not care home. It was sheltered residential accommodation on the old Smeagol site. And that was recommended for approval by the planning department and was voted down by the planning committee. And this shows some of the problems that you have when you're trying to look after the future of a town like Sudbury. How on earth we managed to get all of those views lined up. And frankly, planning arguments are one thing. The future viability and success of Sudbury is more important to me than planning policy. And so we make our decisions based upon what we think is right for Sudbury, as long as it doesn't fly totally in the face of this mystical thing, planning policy. So that's good news, and it's something that your planning committee, John Purser particularly, have been working on for the last 2 years. And I can feel Andrew Phillips tapping me on the shoulder and saying, well done. So thank you, Andrew. We appreciate it.